This is really gross and disgusting. You have some nerve. Now wash it off and move on. Unbelievable.
Hello. $1 sign for every member of the Amazon workforce that is now infected with COVID-19. Our plan is to chalk on the sidewalk in front of Jeff Bezos' mansion $20,000 sign. $20,000 sign. $20,000 sign. The question is, how do we represent these people who are bringing us our gifts this holiday season? First of all, let's be conscious of their suffering. There is no safe place to work at Amazon. When they try to share information about the coronavirus inside the distribution centers, they are fired. You might get off the road, this man in the world. Now you making your money, richest man in the world. You might get off the road. You wouldn't let them help me. You can give them all the money in the world now, but it's too late. What your company needs is a union. Somebody needs to counter your power. And the people, the communities of this nation will rise up against you. As we rose against Donald Trump. Amen.
What would be a message that you would give to President-elect Biden in regards to how he should handle Jeff Bezos hoarding the wealth?
Enforce labor laws at Amazon. You hear them saying, these workers that Bezos fired, you hear them saying there's no safe way to work at Amazon. If you're working 12-hour shifts and taking the ibuprofen, how can you even determine if you're sick from the COVID?
All right. That was Status Quo. Jordan Chariton, Jen Dyes, although I think that was their guy, John Farina, who did that, I think. I'm not sure. But I had to show you that because I love that guy in the green suit. I want him, like, I want that guy to come into my bedroom in the morning when I wake up, and I want him to talk to me through that megaphone and tell me how exciting my day is going to be and how thrilling it is and how I need to get up. Welcome to the Daily Faded. This is where we get faded daily and talk about the politics and news of the day. And today is COVID. There's plenty going on that isn't COVID, but COVID's the biggest story, whether the clown coup likes it or not. So here we look at ncov2019.live. I'm going to look at a couple of different trackers tonight. Almost 65 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 globally. 1.4 million COVID-19 deaths. In the United States, we're at 14.3 million confirmed cases. And according to this tracker, we had 198,352 new cases today with 2,805 deaths, bringing us to 279,840 deaths in the United States from COVID-19. And we always go and check up on California. We'll be checking in on California a little bit more tonight. We are below Texas now in total cases, but not by much. And just like Texas, we had 17,000 new cases today, contributing to 1.2 million cases in the state of California so far. And 109 deaths in California today, contributing to 19,432 deaths. However, one tracker isn't enough. So let's take a look at the COVID tracking project, our daily update. 1.4 million tests, 196,000 cases, and 2,733 deaths. There are 100,226 people currently hospitalized with COVID-19 in the US, the first time hospitalizations have exceeded 100,000. Again, just look at these graphs. Just look at these graphs. You know, we have here the testing graph, pretty reliable line up. And then our daily cases, our first mini spike in April, which seemed so bad at the time. And then our next spike at the end of July. And now here we are, kissing 200,000 new cases a day. And the hospitalized trend is truly disturbing, seeing as how we had topped out around 60,000 and we have now passed 100,000. And that number is only going to go up. We have not begun to see the hospitalizations from the Thanksgiving holiday and travel yet. So that number is going to go up. And when hospitalizations go up, the death rate goes up. And as we can see here, it's starting to look like the next peak, the next couple of weeks, we're going to be seeing new numbers in deaths that are going to blow us away. Here's the heat map for the country right now. The darkest areas are the ones that have the most number of cases per 100,000 people. And again, we're getting killed in the Midwest and the upper Midwest. But everywhere is on fire. Everywhere is on fire. I mean, what are you going to say that East Texas is doing okay? Northern New England is maybe okay. Nobody's okay on this map. God help us. This is not even the Thanksgiving surge yet, let alone a Christmas surge. December through February are going to be awful. Yeah, I mean, Fauci's been talking about a surge upon a surge, that's what we're going to be finding ourselves in. And all reason and analysis would point in that direction. That's exactly what's going to happen. Basically, we're going to be fucked here in the old United States of America. It's terrible because it was avoidable. US virus deaths have passed the spring peak. The United States on Wednesday recorded its single worst daily death toll since the pandemic began. And on a day when COVID-19 hospitalizations also hit an all-time high, the pace of loss showed no signs of slowing anytime soon. Not since spring, during the pandemic's first peak, were so many deaths reported. The high point then was 2,752 deaths on April 15th. On Wednesday, it was at least 2,760. Hospitalizations from the virus topped 100,000, more than double the number at the beginning of November. That is a clear indicator of what the days ahead may look like, experts say. If you tell me the hospitalizations are up this week, I'll tell you that several weeks down the road, the deaths will be up, said Dr. Jeremy Faust, an emergency medicine physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. For all the similarities to the spring pandemic peak, there are some profound differences. In April, the virus and deaths were concentrated in New York and New England. Today, the pandemic's toll is being felt across the country. Still more sobering, the April peak represented the worst moment of spring. It was followed by a decline in deaths as lockdowns were imposed and many Americans altered their behavior. And as staggering as it is, the death toll reported Wednesday appears likely only to worsen, experts say, as the delayed effects of Thanksgiving travel are felt. And many Americans are now weighing how to celebrate Christmas and New Year's. I hope you're going to not do anything stupid at Christmas time. Look, it's not stupid for people to want to see their family. Not stupid at all. We all want to see our families. We all want to hug our loved ones. But we got to be smart. We got to be smart. And we got to face what we're dealing with. LA Times, coronavirus hospitalizations surge to unprecedented heights as California considers drastic steps. The number of Californians hospitalized with the coronavirus surged to a record high for a fourth straight day, soaring above 8,000 amid continued concerns that a sustained spike in patients may eventually swamp the state's healthcare system. Though the 8,517 hospitalizations seen Tuesday are unprecedented, officials caution that it likely doesn't represent the ceiling of the latest COVID-19 surge, as the figure largely excludes anyone who was only recently infected, including over the Thanksgiving weekend. We do have a choice to make, each one of us. Do we want to be part of the solution to this horrifying surge? Do we want to be the problem? Los Angeles County Public Health Director Barbara Ferrer said during a briefing Wednesday, because where you fall in this effort now has a life or death consequence, possibly for people you know and love, but certainly for people across the country who are loved by others. Governor Gavin Newsom sounded the alarm on the state of the state's hospitals earlier this week. Unless things change, he said, California could exceed its existing intensive care unit capacity by mid-December, a possibility he warned could require dramatic action to keep from becoming reality. Oh, look at that. I didn't have it up. Sorry, that was just me reading this article from the LA Times. Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to take any kind of COVID advice from old Gavin these days after his little meal at the French Laundry. Maybe he should have followed his own COVID restaurant recommendations. But it doesn't change what he said is completely and totally true. And so much nonsense going on out in the world today. So much nonsense. And people are carrying on about this fucking outrageous clown coup. And I saw them in. Oh man, I'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn, who this is from Josh Marshall, Talking Points memo. Here's from the manifesto General Flynn tweeted and endorsed. Calls on Trump to declare martial law and suspend the Constitution, then have the military hold a new election. Quote, when the legislators, courts, and/or Congress fail to do their duty under the 12th Amendment, you must be ready, Mr. President, to immediately declare a limited form of martial law and temporarily suspend the Constitution and civilian control of these federal elections for the sole purpose of having the military oversee a national revote, a vote that assures a fair election in every jurisdiction and reflects the true will of the people, federal candidates only, paper ballots, no computers, hand counted with both parties watching every vote, only registered voters, photo ID to prove residence. Because of course, not only do I want martial law and a coup, but I also want voter ID. So Christopher M. True wrote this thread. Let's break this down and compare this terrifying statement and compare it to another point in history. Hitler never won a single election. He runs in 1933 but loses. The Nazi Party, on the other hand, had done quite well in gaining seats in the Reichstag. So once the election is over, Hitler is given the honorary position of Chancellor. Within a few weeks, on February 27th, the Reichstag burns to the ground. The Nazis naturally blamed communists, as they were prone to do. This, however, exposed a gaping hole in the Weimar Constitution. Let's backpedal a bit to the establishment of the Weimar Constitution. When the Weimar Constitution was written, a provision was added that gave the chancellor or the president the power to rule by decree in a parliamentary crisis, thus giving them a dictatorial role. This was power Hitler never relinquished until the day he put a bullet in his head out of pure cowardice and fear of retribution from the Soviets and, the world, but more immediately the Soviets. Luckily for us, we do not have this loophole. If our elected officials finally show their allegiance to the Constitution and not to a man, that is what Flynn is suggesting in his statement. He wants a Nazi-style takeover of our government. Every word out of the traitor General Flynn's mouth is treasonous. It calls for what would amount to a dictatorship. This is anti-democracy at its very core. I've spent my blah, blah, blah. And then he goes on to say something to challenge Republicans and ask them if they're Nazis or Republicans. Look, I brought this up because for Michael Flynn, the disgraced former national security advisor of the sitting president, to make this statement in the Washington Examiner. What's fascinating is that as I go through some news websites, this isn't the number one story. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if someone told you that 4 years from now, Trump's disgraced national security advisor and psycho boyfriend, Michael Flynn, that he was going to suggest martial law to preserve the Trump presidency forever? You would say yes, that would be the big news of the day. At least I think that would be my argument. Not a very strong argument, but. And then we have the great Sidney Powell. She's still around. She's still active. This is from Jonathan Swan at Axios. President Trump has rarely met a conspiracy theory he doesn't like, but he and other Republicans now worry the wild tales told by lawyers Sidney Powell and Lin Wood may cost them in Georgia's Senate special elections. Why it matters. The two are telling Georgians not to vote for Republicans David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler because of a bizarre, baseless, and potentially self-defeating theory. It's not worth voting because the Chinese Communist Party has rigged the voting machines. There's no more destructive force in American politics, much less in the Republican Party or Trump movement, than Sidney Powell in front of a TV camera, a senior administration official tells Axios. If she costs Trump the Senate and delivers total control of the government to Democrats, she will have done more for the left than any Democrat in America. Look, I have no strong rooting interest in John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. I have no reason to believe that they are corrupt beyond the normal money and politics corruption that most centrists are guilty of, that most politicians are guilty of. But Loeffler and Perdue are terrible. They're terrible. And for that matter, Ron Johnson. And I want them to go down as a result of here's Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, who, by the way, is up for re-election in 2 years. And he tells us, here's Manu Raju from CNN. Ron Johnson said the Attorney General should, quote, show everybody his evidence about no mass fraud because there's enough suspicions and irregularities there. Asked if he's not satisfied with Barr's conclusion, Johnson added, I think there is still enough questions outstanding. That was just the beginning of it, as Ron Johnson, part of the clown coup, stepped in it. This was the real story of the day with Ron Johnson. My call with Ron Johnson, he knows Biden won but won't admit it. This is in The Bulwark. November 14th, 8:37 a.m., my phone rings. I do a double take on my caller ID and realize who is calling. I take a deep breath and answer the phone. The next 30 minutes and 32 seconds would be a conversation that was nothing short of surreal. My discussion with Senator Ron Johnson was one that I have hesitated openly discussing for 3 weeks. As a former chairman for the Brown County Republican Party, I have people I respect deeply who are still members of the party. There are many elected officials whom I consider friends, and I do not want to give reason to think twice about any conversation. Additionally, I didn't want my family to become a target, especially with my wife days from giving birth to our child. However, given what was discussed and given the war that leaders of the GOP, such as Senator Johnson, are waging on the very foundations of our democracy, I could no longer stay silent. And then he makes it so easy for us, whoever this person is. What's his name? Mark Becker. The TLDR of the call was this: Senator Johnson knows that Joe Biden won a free and fair election. He's refusing to admit it publicly and stoking conspiracies that undermine our democracy solely because it would be political suicide to oppose Trump. I find this unconscionable. And then he goes on here to say, Senator Johnson spoke about the massive amounts of people Donald Trump brought into the party, many of whom have never cared about politics before. He said that, yes, Donald Trump is an asshole, but the votes that Trump received, especially in Wisconsin, cannot be overlooked. Senator Johnson talked about how, prior to November 3rd, Johnson received the highest number of Republican votes in the history of the state of Wisconsin. His goal going into his 2016 election was to get 1.5 million votes. He failed to reach that in 2016, while President Trump did in 2020, despite losing. This is the best part. Absolutely not. Bernie Sanders and AOC want to fundamentally change our country, and you can't love something you want to fundamentally change. Yada, yada, yada. So Ron Johnson clowned himself. He clowned himself. I'm glad this guy came out and said this so that everyone knows. Because we got to remember, I could feel the historical amnesia creeping up already. I could feel people discarding Trump. I could feel people trying to make arguments about how they're going to be reasonable. I mean, look at Ron. I think it was Ron Johnson. I think he was the one who, and he, by the way, was one of the 3 senators who dumped stocks after a coronavirus briefing. Anyway, I've lost track of what I was talking about, but it's been a clown car shit show with the clown coup today. All right, I have one other thing that I want to show you today. It's kind of a short stream. Hold on one second. This is just the most amazing thing. Check this out. This is from NBC News. Watch this meteor. Boom! Watch it again in slow-mo. From Japan, November 29th. Meteor explosion. in the sky. Looks pretty amazing. My fire mage in Warcraft can do that too. Just saying. Anyway, thank you for watching The Daily Faded. Sorry that I have been gone so long, but I am back, and we'll have more tomorrow. All right, peace out.